Okay, I'm going to start recording. You're going to listen to me talk, okay?
The digital age is upon us.
Pigeons were replaced by horses, who were then replaced by the telegraph. The telegraph was made obsolete by the telephone and radio. And once the internet rolled around, well, we're living in that time now. The typical letter that was once received in the mailbox has been replaced by emails in our inbox. We no longer have to imagine what it would look like if, say, a pigeon had the ears of a rat, or if Michael Jackson were still alive and worked as a cashier at a grocery store. Even the current president of the United States is using AI videos to promote his agenda. Through the innovation and now commercialization of AI, mankind has found its shiny new toy. But even before AI hit the proverbial shelves, there were pioneers of times past showcasing its potential for misuse and abuse. Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, a classic book that was later adapted into a movie featuring Will Smith, explored themes of fear, human irrationality, AI consciousness, and the ethical challenges involving machines that were once designed to serve, but often outthink their human creators. George Orwell's 1984 and Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 are again two more examples of how both power and technology can corrupt and twist the human mind. And today, with a tool as powerful as AI in the hands of governments, tech conglomerates, and obscenely wealthy billionaires, it is not difficult to imagine its potential as a tool to further aid in developing a world where a small few govern not just economics, but the very definition of the human experience. While these books, I, Robot, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, are heralded today as classics in the entertainment and literature genres, many are starting to accept the reality that these books provide a thin veil over some deeper truth that has never been more poignant than it is today. In current times, the presence of AI integrated devices has become virtually ubiquitous. But what does a smartphone, your favorite anime, your favorite YouTuber, or that Zoom call you had, and a button down and boxers all have in common? In some way or another, they all rely on data centers. Data centers are deeply ingrained within our modern society. Just think of all the countless subscriptions we have to services like Apple, Netflix, Google, and Spotify. What we do, our data, is constantly being surveilled and harvested. And all of this is happening with our consent. We're going to take a closer look at how data centers are connected to our entertainment and our economics, with the goal of not just learning about data centers, but asking ourselves the question, what can we do to lessen the reach of tech giants and governments into our lives? Picture this, a beautiful golden hour winter backdrop. There is a river cutting through the snowfall. The sun is dancing through the branches of the trees. The trees themselves are hardy, perhaps some sort of fir. The tree's dark green bristles are refined after countless years improving upon itself to harness the light of the sun, despite the bitter cold. And the caption underneath the video simply states, they wanted to build. They wanted to build a data center here. When gathering the definition of a data center, I decided to use the definition provided by an actual data and technology-based company, one that many of you might have heard about. Cisco Systems defines a data center as follows. At its simplest, a data center is a physical facility that organizations use to house their critical applications and data. A data center's design is based on a network of computing and storage resources that enable the delivery of shared applications and data. They go on to list the key components of a data center. Let's see if we can clarify that a bit more. Gemini had a bit more dramatic definition, and one that captures it in less words. It defined data centers as the physical backbone of the digital world. This definition lends itself to exposing the truth of what data centers really are, beyond just the written definition. Around the world, these fortresses of information are used for functions such as cloud computing, big data, e-commerce, remote work, and of course, AI. How prevalent is something like cloud computing in your life? Well, streaming services such as Netflix, Spotify, Disney+, and quite literally countless more utilize cloud computing to let us pick our next dopamine hit in the form of listening to our favorite music, watching captivating exposition into the life of celebrities, or revisiting a classic movie from our childhood. In the workplace, services like Google Drive, Dropbox, and Zoom meetings all exist almost exclusively in the cloud computing environment. Amazon is the most prevalent example of e-commerce, being the largest e-commerce entity in the world. As for big data, well, it's in the name. Your name, address, social security information, your purchases, your search history, all of it is logged somewhere in data centers. And ever since COVID, working remotely has gone from an economic necessity to a regularly used hiring incentive. I cannot overstate just how intertwined artificial intelligence and hyperscale data centers are with one another. Data centers serve in a not so metaphorical way as the brains behind AI programs like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. But it isn't like commercially available AI has its own brain that it is using. It is using your brain, your habits, your interests, your life. The artificial part of artificial intelligence is us. I recently learned that every time I upload or any other YouTube creator uploads a video, Mother Gemini is watching, listening to our voices, reading our screens, determining if we are being sarcastic, funny, or serious. It is learning from all of us. With all of the diverse ways data and information intersect with our entertainment and economics, it becomes easier to see how data centers allow businesses to easily scale information and technology resources as the need arises. I need you to hold on to that idea of scaling, the idea of growing and expanding something, because that leads to our next topic. Why are there so many? On this planet, there exists an innumerable amount of living organisms, because even in 2025, we continue to discover more. But while the planet hosts so many varied forms of life, in this world, there is just one form of life that reigns supreme: humans. And we have no qualms about shaping the planet to fit our world's needs. Warehouses, office buildings, mining operations, factories, and now data centers. The question most major corporations or venture capitalists ask themselves is comprised of just 3 words. Can it scale? question is then followed by another. Can I make my pals and I more money to then scale other things even more? Look, we can point the finger at corporations and out-of-touch wealthy elites all day for an increasingly longer list of things that are happening to our planet. And I hate to be the one to say it, but painting with a broad brush, most large corporations would reason that they largely won't or can't change. This is because of one word: investment. Not just money, but people's time, their very life. Many, but not all, large corporations are publicly traded or privately funded by individual or group investors. These mega companies have shareholders and boards of directors who are expecting a return on their investment. The equivalent, perhaps, for you and I is we have bills to pay. We don't pay our bills. Cold showers by candlelight, followed closely by forced camping. For a corporate power group or a member of our society's upper echelon, that might just mean no more luxury living and living more like the average consumer. Gross. But also remember that these large corporations employ like a lot of people. So if the corporations go down, they will most definitely take others with them. The investment industry alone was worth over $4 trillion in 2024, with a projection to almost $6 trillion by 2029, with a large portion of that money set to be funded into data analytics. So, they keep corporating. 2025 had been slated for an additional 10 gigawatts of data centers worldwide. To put that another way, 10 gigawatts of data centers equates to approximately 500 to 600 new hyperscale data centers. Those are the really big ones. These additional data centers will be pulling down 10 billion watts of energy. That is enough energy to power millions of homes, somewhere between 7 to 10 million homes. On a positive note, as of November 2025, there were only 7 gigawatts of data centers put up, rather than the projected 10. The data industry is now a signal industry for the movers of this world. Data is in the dawn of its new age. We will most likely not hear the shady business deals and the reorganizing of laws to accommodate the rise of this industry. Major news networks are not being paid to snitch on their benefactors. But not only is big data coming, it is here, and its roots are only getting deeper. The first law of thermodynamics, also called the conservation of energy, dictates that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed. So when we burn gas in our cars to get to work, the actual intangible energy that drives the pistons is not destroyed, but our ability to harness it in that liquid physical form is lost unless we can turn it back into its liquid physical form. We cannot, which is why it's called a non-renewable resource. This is arguably the most defining principle of the world's primary energy source, fossil fuels. Right now, our society is crammed into a passenger van barreling through reality. But our mysterious driver has let us discover that the tank is getting low. Moreover, not only are we low on fuel, all the fuel we've been using is having a runaway effect on the very planet we all live on. Being aware of this fact, as well as positioning themselves for stability into the future, some savvy investors and well-respected companies are beginning to formally entertain the practice of implementing nuclear energy sources into their data centers. In their latest data center report, Jones Lang LaSalle, a 200-year-old investment company, examined the role and implementation of alternative examine the role and implementation of alternative energy sources, such as large-scale nuclear and small modular reactors for data centers. They ultimately determined that enthusiasm for nuclear will continue to gain momentum, citing that nuclear power is a clean and reliable energy source. Remember, these centers draw down an enormous amount of power. Frankly, if these energy vacuums consume this much of the available energy, where are we going to get the power for our homes or schools or hospitals? The primary source of energy for everyone is non-renewable, and we all must share. One hyperscale data center pulls down enough energy to power 400,000 electric vehicles. In smaller or less developed countries, there are serious power constraints that would limit the feasibility of installing a data center. The report from JLL goes on to cite that the further development of liquid cooling technology has the potential to reshape the efficiency of energy delivery. So energy efficiency, not just availability, is the other key area of focus. Finally, as we approach the end of this dive into data centers, we can try to ask the question, why are large data centers popping up in more rural places? Well, for starters, huge tracts of land in the countryside, non-developed and vacant, are generally cheaper. These data centers need a lot of room to grow. Second is that areas outside of busy cities are generally not as warm in comparison. And you can't forget the tax breaks that are given from the government to make the deal that much sweeter. So large data centers need a lot of land, and that land is almost exclusively going to be found in rural settings. That fact, plus their huge energy demands, places them in a prime position to also receive the new energy source that we just discussed. The nuclear, radioactive, makes your skin glow green, wipes out an entire geographical location for decades power source. If you made it this far in the video, you will not be surprised when nuclear power begins to get better PR in the collective public consciousness. So let's unpack everything we talked about and take a look at what this can mean for all of us, with the goal of pondering what we can do as individuals to lessen big data's reach into our lives. It's easy to just blame large corporations and greed. And no, this is not some kind of corporation PR campaign. But every large corporation or world leader gets their power, their influence, their wealth, and their control from the people. What is a king without his kingdom type shit? It has been that way for thousands of years. Today, we are the consumers of this world, Americans in particular. I think if we really want change, we'd have to start with ourselves. We would have to find a reason to not always use our phones and computers and devices. I mean, where do cell phones, computers, and data centers naturally occur? And I get it, it has become increasingly more difficult to do that. I wonder why. Our love for novelty and our desire to improve and grow, in some ways, has been the catalyst for how we even got to this point. But it can also be a part of the way we get through this point without completely getting swept up into innovation. I'm going to seek to break down these segments of these videos in this way. I'll give you 3 things: something you can do, something you can change, and something you can consider. Something you can do is seek the truth about the things around you. Don't always choose the path of least resistance. There is a certain beauty in stumbling and fumbling on the path to be better. Something you can change. We can change the way we interface with the things that we consume. Change the way we use our precious focus in our life instead of giving it to a system that largely serves itself. And lastly, something that you can consider that most people don't live to 100 years old. Set aside time to not let our technology use us. But no matter how long or short we have, it's precious because God gave it life. I know it's polarizing to bring in faith, but I am not a holier than thou person. I'm just a guy who decided one day he really wanted to start making factual, entertaining, transformative content. I'm just one person, but the power of belief and faith I've witnessed firsthand in my own life. It's led me to say, if you want to change the world, start by changing yourself. This is not a kumbaya moment. It's not a joke. Getting serious about improving yourself is a lot harder than you might think. If you've never tried it, give it a try. And once you start, you'll probably hit the ground and try to get up again, maybe. And you might hit the ground again and then try to get up again, maybe. You hit the ground, get up, you hit the ground and get up. All those times you keep hitting the ground and choosing to get back up, you're putting in reps. You're just not quitting. That is the secret to being better. Just don't quit. Eventually, you won't hit the ground as hard, or maybe you catch yourself and you keep walking. And that walk will turn into a jog, it'll turn into a flat out run, and then you'll be able to kind of shift gears, go faster and slower, depending on what life throws at you. So it's a way of becoming dynamic and not just, being the victim, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just a guy on YouTube. I'm not a therapist, okay? I'm not. But I do care. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Sorry if I got a little woody there. That's also part of who I am. I'm going to try to keep it contained, but not really. I'm not trying to contain it. I don't know. I just try to keep it focused. I really took time to try to say some things that I thought could reach as many people as possible. I'm not trying to piss anybody off, but at the same time, I'm not going to change who I am. So what you see is what you get. Anyways. You guys have a good one. Remember to be safe, be wise, and be prayerful. I'll catch you in the next video.
Thank you.